So I wanted to come on and do a little bit something different. So everybody say hello to my lovely sister Lolo, also known as Lauren in the real world. But wanted to come on and talk a little bit about mental health and some things that a lot of women go through postpartum that my sister's had experience with, and I think it's something that she's very passionate about from an awareness standpoint, making sure everybody knows that it's a real thing and how to deal with it. So I want to kind of talk through some of those items. My sister, baby sister, 10 years younger than me, she is a heart of gold, and I want to be her when I grow up. So definitely wanted to give her voice an opportunity on my platform to kind of talk through some of the things that she's experienced. So, um, Miss Lauren, one of the things I want to start with just talking about, I think everybody's awareness of any type of mental health or depression, things like that, everybody's awareness is very different. So, before you had any type of experience with those kind of items, what was your knowledge base?
I'm a teacher. And so like we're trained at the beginning of every year on different signs of anxiety, signs of depression in students. And but it's kind of very different when you're like, okay, yeah. So like if I ever see a student exhibit these symptoms, then I would know that maybe that student needs some extra help. But it's also very hard to flip that coin back to yourself. And so I I had knowledge of these things, but not knowledge of how to like self-identify or um, kind of how to take care of it in my own life, basically. As far as postpartum specific mental health, I really had no idea that it was even a thing, that was like a common thing amongst, you know, the postpartum world, women in the postpartum world. And it wasn't until after, well, okay, so I did have a friend that she had dealt with severe depression in college, and she had mentioned in passing that her mom had dealt with postpartum depression. And I was just very confused by that concept of why would having a baby cause you to be depressed and sad? Like that didn't make any sense to me, but I was in college and I wasn't getting married anytime soon, so I didn't even think about it. But after having my first little boy is when um after having Hawk is when I realized that you know this was a thing. And once I finally was able to verbalize it to someone else, which was mom, actually our mom, she mentioned that she had dealt with things and that you had experienced things, and that was kind of the first time ever that I even knew it existed in my own family. So yeah.
So, my sister has two adorable little boys, my lovely nephews. So, if you want to talk a little bit about kind of their ages and kind of the years or time frame as far as your two pregnancies and deliveries.
Yeah, so I was pregnant, got pregnant with Hawk in 2018. He was born in 2019, and he is 4 years old now. And then Rain was actually just born in January. He will be 6 months on July 12th. So yeah, so he was 22, 23 baby.
Yeah, and 6 months, and he weighs as much as a 1 year old. So,
Yeah, basically.
yeah, he's a big boy. So how did you? I know both pregnancies. What you dealt with postpartum was very different in both situations. So, how did you, with both situations, how did you recognize that, hey, something's up?
So at the after Hawk was born, they do the checkups and everything after. They had some surveys at my doctor's office, and they mentioned the what is it, the baby blues, right? Which I don't know if that's even a thing. I don't think it is a thing. I think it's actually just postpartum depression.
Right.
Um, and it was kind of like an infographic talking about this is baby blues, this is postpartum depression. If you identify with any of these things on postpartum depression, take this survey. And then there was a survey, and then from there they moved forward. So I was like, okay, I mean, afterwards, I, was like, emotional and like would have nights when I was, changing his diaper in the middle of the night where I would, just start crying and things. And it kind of was like, well, I think I'm okay though. Like I think I'm just sad. I'm just sad. For some reason, whatever reasons, the hormones or something. Um, until it started to kind of like feel like it was like swallowing up my life. Like I was like being engulfed by it, to where the happy times, the like joyous times started becoming fewer and fewer, and the difficult, like, sad, but it's not just sadness, it's also like this blankness, like a black hole kind of feeling. Um, those started becoming stronger and more prevalent like in the days. And I think I finally realized that there was something more serious when I started to have those thoughts of like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want, like, I think things would be better if I just weren't here, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And then eventually got to the point where I was starting to think of like ways in which I could in my life, and I was like, oh wow, that's not me. That never has been me. And this is something more serious that I need to talk about.
Yeah. So going into like depth, more in depth with each pregnancies, because like mine was more so with the first, Paxton, my oldest, and he's the oldest of all the nieces and nephews. And I thought my life was over. Like, I mean, I've been in this
yeah
total work environment, go, 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 pursuing your professional career. And I mean, I think it was second, third week home, I just remember walking him in a stroller and being like, oh my God, my life is over. Like,
mm-hmm.
and then, not knowing, okay, is this normal? And then you kind of have that guilt of like, oh, I'm supposed to be a happy, joyous mom. So you feel bad almost for feeling bad. So then,
and then you feel trapped because you
right.
feel like part of the depression too is that like, would it be better for me not to be here? And then you're like, but I have a child to take care of.
Right.
Like I have a responsibility, and then you feel trapped, which keeps it cycling.
The cycle, right.
Yeah.
Perpetuates itself at that point.
Yeah.
So, to explain, obviously I know the difference between the two pregnancies, but explain, from Hawk, child number one, to Rain, my second nephew, as far as the differences of what you've experienced.
Yeah. So after Rain, I was doing okay. I had, anxiety for sure, because I'd had some health concerns during the pregnancy. Like I had preeclampsia, was diagnosed with preeclampsia with Hawk and had to be induced because of that. And so throughout the whole pregnancy, they were, constantly monitoring my blood pressure on a weekly basis to make sure that wasn't going to be a problem. And then I had these huge, very painful varicose veins pop up on my left calf, like all over the calf. And I am already very skittish about that kind of stuff, like veins and like, I don't know, I just can't handle it. And so that, they were worried I had a blood clot. I had to have a, MRI done to see if that was the case. And fortunately wasn't, but then I had to start taking blood thinners with shots like straight into the belly, which that's more anxiety because you're like, am I going to hit the baby? And so that was all happening during the pregnancy. So a lot of anxiety plus anxiety in my work environment. And then I also am kind of like starting to realize now that I had anxiety that I would go through postpartum depression again after his birth. And so it was like that was a tremendous fear that I had, is that because I didn't want to go back to that place. And all of that kind of snowballed into postpartum psychosis, actually. And so it started as a depersonalization, which is where you basically feel like you are watching yourself, like literally like you're not in your body, like you don't feel connected to your body. One of my therapists actually explained it as though you're in the back of a cave and you can see everybody outside the cave living their life and doing everything, but literally even in the tunnel vision aspect of being at the back of a cave is what it was like, to where you just don't feel like you're in the world, basically. And then from there, I, that's a scary thing to experience.
Yeah.
And which then leveled up the anxiety and then spiraled it into the postpartum psychosis. Unfortunately, with y'all, with family, with mainly my husband Nick and you, like the mentioning of the term psychosis helped me one day to like look it up and then realize, oh, that is me. That is what I'm experiencing. And it kind of like snapped me out of it and then made it spiral back the other way. Then I dealt with depersonalization for about 5 months after that while I was teaching, while I was trying to take care of both the boys and everything. And it was, yeah, that was very difficult.
Yeah.
Then it turns back into depression because you have this circling thought of, is this the rest of my life? Am I going to not be able to experience life again the way that other people do? Which is not true because I am like very fortunate that I have, I've passed that phase now. So very different experience from the first time. Would you like me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, do you think like I always wonder because I think one of the issues I had a hard time with is I go back to like our upbringing and I felt like there was you just didn't talk about things like
Oh yeah.
and there was a lot of and I even wrote about it recently in one of my posts about just talking about loneliness and just this I don't know if you want to call it old school mentality, but like just suck it up, buttercup, like and you're supposed to be tough and you're supposed to, just figure it out. And, I'd always kind of channeled that in my professional career and then trying to channel that as a new mom when felt stuck in that cycle. And then I think that was part of it for me is like, I always was told you figure it out, you work hard, you keep going. And then I don't know if I felt like I wasn't even able to say something. Or I guess it made me second guess myself if anything was really wrong, or even if it was wrong, then you just keep pushing through. I don't know if you felt the same, but that was part of the time.
For sure. I mean, and like just through the therapy work I've done since having Rain, everything leads back to your upbringing, early childhood trauma, everything like that. And so it stacks, even if it's like what they call it little T trauma versus big T trauma. Big T trauma being like, I don't know, a major medical condition, which I did actually experience, but I did experience that as a baby. But little T trauma being like emotional trauma or things like that, they stack up. If you keep pushing forward, they stack up to become big T trauma, and then it just gets out of hand. And so that's essentially like you're saying, like that's what happened to me too. And I had little T trauma from other parts of life, like mainly my job as a teacher in a pretty rough Title I school. And so it all just added up to this big storm after he was born. But yeah, oh, sorry, I realized I didn't really answer the question. But so like with after Hawk, there were very few people that actually knew that I dealt with depression. Mom did. And I think through mom, and then I think also maybe like there was a point where I did talk to you about it because you like asked me how I was doing. With you, obviously Nick knew, and then one of my best friends, Megan, knew because I had gone to stay in Waco for 2 weeks because it had gotten so bad. And while I was leaving, I told her, I'm going to Waco to stay with my parents for 2 weeks because I'm dealing with depression. She was in a group of women like with their church, and I asked them to pray for me while I was gone. And so like that was it. And it was just for me, not like I couldn't, but it was more like a shame kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, like this concept of like white knuckling through life, like I should be able to handle this. I should be able to handle being a working mom with a new baby, like why am I going through this? And yeah, so it was like a shame that I even had thoughts of like killing myself and things.
Yeah.
Um
I don't know if you,
this yeah, keep going. Sorry.
well, I was gonna say like with our older brother, like had a lot of anxiety issues. I mean, our whole family, let's be real. Everybody at some point in time has either anxiety, depression, something. And I think, dealing with all of our older brother's issues, I think even before, like, well before all this, seeing him in some of his like debilitating states sometimes, like that was the first time I think I really was like, this is real. And because I think there's so many people that are, raised with that just be tough mentality. And someone says like, oh, I'm depressed. And everyone's like, you suck it up. Right. It's like, you get strep throat, you go take antibiotics,
Yeah.
and you get help. It's no different. It's a sickness, illness, right? And like, and then people just don't realize, like, again, there's nothing to be ashamed of. You wouldn't be ashamed of getting strep throat, right? Like, so it's just
Yeah.
like,
Right.
if
Yeah.
you think about it in that same mentality, it's samesies, right? Like you
Hmm.
need to get help, you need to get care. So
Yeah. So going on with the question though of like the difference between the two times. So it was almost like after rain,
mhm.
I was forced to tell everybody,
Yeah,
anybody and everybody, because you can't go through something like psychosis and just stay hidden and try to hide it. It's just not possible. And so I told mom and dad, I told all of y'all, I told my administration at school because I needed them to know that I wasn't going to be turning lesson plans in every week. That just wasn't going to be happening right now. I will show up and I will take care of the kids in my room, but we're going to be doing like yoga and stuff like that. I literally told them that. And which they were very supportive of me. And I told so many of my friends. I was actually able to help another friend that didn't even know was experiencing that. Help them out of it. And then let's see who else. I made a Facebook post. There we go. That's the major one. I was like, you know what? Like this is just it's not worth watching more and more people suffer through this and then feeling like they can't talk to somebody. And I felt like I needed to be like not a gateway because I don't know. I mean, sort of but I'm not like the only one. Lots of people do talk about this stuff nowadays. It's just that it's hard to tell people, especially if they've known you a long time, known you in this one way forever, of hiding all that stuff. And then for you to be like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm dealing with this. It's a huge flip flop. And you wonder how people will look at you, what they'll think of you. I after making the Facebook post, I was still at school. I remember walking past a teacher and she said hi to me, but it was like very awkward. So awkward because she like made that quick weird eye contact and then
like,
looked
oh
away.
gosh, crazy person walking by.
Like, well, all you can do is like laugh
Yeah.
about it at that point because it's just it is like I knew I was doing what I needed to do, and people can think I'm crazy, whatever. Because I mean, I literally, was considered, for a time
Yeah,
period, but
everybody's a little crazy, but
yeah. But
um,
yeah, it was. So I feel like though that this time through, because I was forced to, I had to be more open about it.
yeah,
But then that actually ended up being the best thing for me. It's opened so many doors for me and has helped me get past so much because of that.
yeah, and even though more and more people talk about it and recognize it's a thing, right? It's still the power in numbers. That's what I always go back to, the power in numbers. The more people that talk to people, the more that you quote unquote normalize it, that this is real, then the less amount of people by percentage have to struggle through it without support. So
Yeah, I
uh,
think honestly it's more rare if you don't deal with something
yeah,
like this anymore nowadays. I mean, especially after COVID. Everybody has been through trauma now because of experiencing COVID,
yeah,
that fear. And so yeah, our numbers are far greater than we even realize.
yeah, yeah. I mean, dear goodness, just the amount of behavioral health patients in our hospitals every single day. Um, but so the last thing I really want to kind of talk through is just how this has played out, from support and what you're from a passion perspective, what you're after. I think, both sides of life, personal and professional, and what everything you've learned through all of this, what is it that you're trying to, I guess, harvest from it?
Yeah. So it's actually ended up being such an eye opener for me, like life changing, like forever. I can't go
Yeah.
back the other way. So no longer am I that kind of person that just does things to make other people happy. Like
Yeah.
I just no, because I'm not going back to that place again. And it doesn't really matter who it is, honestly. If I don't feel like I can handle a situation, like if it is I just been through a stressful week at work or something, and I'm, being invited by family to go visit or something, that I might have to say no, because I've come to a point where like I have to take care of me in order to take care of my family. Now I'm in summer right now, so like we just got done celebrating a birthday, and that was awesome. And I was like, that was fun. I can do that because I'm not in a
Mhm.
stressful situation right now. But so I would say that's one thing is being able to say no
Set boundaries.
to things, setting
Yeah.
boundaries, um, to take care of myself and staying within my like window of tolerance, basically, is what you call it. Then from that, I think in this whole experience, I learned my self worth as well.
Yeah.
So I had been working at this school. Teaching is already difficult no matter where you are, because you're handling, you know, like at my school, I had 33 kids in one of my classes, and you're on your own and you're taking care of 33 kids in your classroom that have their own trauma, and you're trying to teach something and they don't want to hear it. They want to be on their phones, like it's just a whole thing. And but in the school I was in, two middle schools had merged together, and it was just absolute chaos. And I didn't even realize that I was experiencing so much anxiety from that until I came back from having rain to work. And um, so I was kind of left on an island. I'd moved from being a reading teacher to being a theater and dance teacher. And at my school, the priority was the core classes, math, science, reading, all that, because they're tested subjects. And being an elective, I was kind of pushed to an island. So if I tried to get help with a student, I was having an issue with student, walking the halls, not coming to class, or um, you know, just extremely disruptive behavior in other ways, I would barely get help. I had an administrator in my classroom one time throughout the whole year, and that was because I was getting my evaluation done. And so the that stress made me realize that I'm actually really good at what I do, and I deserve better than that. And so like it's that was probably the second thing I learned is like all about, self-worth. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with
The boundaries and
boundaries
yes.
for yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so that's part of it. Going on with what I do though, as I studied theater at Baylor and English and journalism. And so I'm all in that vein of like all creative type, like music, dance, theater, writing, all of it. And I love it so much. And I never realized until this why I loved it so much. But through this postpartum psychosis experience, I've realized that I want to pursue expressive arts therapy. And the idea is that you use all of those things to work your way back to living life to your fullest. So the difference is that, I've, researched some on this, but um, one expressive arts therapist said that the idea is therapy counseling is great to get you back to a place of like a normal range, right? To get you back to a good state. But the expressive arts side through music, dance, then help you find joy in life again.
Yeah.
And so that is, I experienced it firsthand because after coming back from psychosis and working while teaching theater and dance, during my planning periods, I would turn music on in my room. For me, it was often like praise music or just a song that was about getting through something difficult. And I would just improv dance in my classroom and really learn the importance of the arts in overcoming difficult situations. And so it's been so awesome to like get verification that I'm doing the right thing in my career and that I'm headed in the right direction. And that through all this, I'm going to be able to help kids, adults, people with something that I love to do. So yeah.
Yeah. It makes me wonder how much like, us all going through dance growing up. Like I just remember like, especially like lyrical classes or something like,
oh yeah.
Like it was the only time not only time, but a lot of times that was the only time I might have a joy in that week or time, like just again, express the piece. And, I guess, when you're going through it, I don't know that I really realized like why I enjoyed it so much, but it makes sense.
Yes, it does. It really does. And I was thinking about that too, because we were talking earlier about had I ever experienced depression or anxiety anytime before having children. And I think I obviously did. I just didn't know what it was.
So in addition, obviously you're going down the expressive arts therapy route, which is really cool. I think it's awesome that I think, a lot of us, you realize later in life why you were going down the journey or the path that you were going. So I think it's cool to how all that's circling back around to make sense. Is there anything else? Like, what else are you thinking about doing to help others or, that are going through similar situations?
Yeah. So I've got like a few different like things rolling around in my head. But first of all, through expressive arts therapy, my goal eventually with that is to offer classes for people, but also to eventually create a curriculum to be used in schools to where I could help write the TEKS to create a class that is offered, an elective class that is offered for students. And I don't know what they would call it, but so where it would encompass all of the arts, but not for performance or not for, that side of it, but for the therapy side of it, and where they would learn about different disorders and where they would learn about, strategies to approach them and everything in a class.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I also have started the very first steps in writing a book about the postpartum experience, or not just postpartum, but even for mothers that are struggling with infertility or, that have aborted babies or miscarriages, the hormonal changes that happen through pregnancy and then the postpartum stage as well. And then just the trauma of childbirth in it of itself. And so I am going to be including my own story in this, but I have already had about 35 different women willing to come forward and tell their own stories. And so it's basically going to be a compilation of all these different women's stories of very raw, very detailed, the thoughts that went through their head, the things that they did during their experience, and just to kind of open up a door for people to feel like they can really like authentically talk about this kind of stuff and not just say, oh, I dealt with postpartum depression and that'd be it. But Oh, did you think that too? Yeah, I thought that too, that kind of experience. Um, so there's that. That book is happening in the works. I've got a friend that has helped me get it started. And then let's see what else. Oh, and then lastly is for right now, and kind of to start the getting the book going, I'm going to be using my personal TikTok to kind of answer questions about all these things that I've experienced. What especially about the psychosis, because not many people really understand what is that actually like to go through.
Yeah.
It is something else. Like
Yeah.
you can't really explain it enough, but I'm going to try to, and then mainly just try to give ways in which I was able to get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to help people in that way as well. So, and if I've realized that through all this is all helping me too,
Yeah.
writing my own
Therapy in
story out.
itself.
Oh my gosh, yes. So like even this video is also helpful. Writing out my own story. Um, you know, therapists tell you, journaling
Yeah.
is one of the strategies that is often used to help you get through a situation. So that is going to help me, and then it's going to help the women that write the stories, and it's going to help the other women that are reading it as well. So, but then I'm also, hope to be able to help students because we want to intervene as early as possible in the mental health world. That way, if you're aware of something earlier in life, be it elementary, middle school, whatever, then you can know before you get to being a parent or getting married or whatever it may be in your future,
Yeah.
to know how to live your life.
Yeah. You think about how much healthier people could be going into adulthood. If there is a true curriculum that, schools implement to help, you know, whatever that child's going through in the moment. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, anything else that you can think of before we wrap up?
I don't think so. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think one of the things, like, I don't know, like, I've been in and out of counseling, therapy, all of it, and then multiple times throughout my life. And I think that's the other thing. It's just like everyone realizing it's continuous. It's not, they say, like, you don't take a shower once and expect to be clean the rest of your life.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. People understand, like, anybody is going to have moments where you either quote unquote relapse or you have, those thoughts, and just understanding the importance of being, being aware, of your own self and doing that gut check. Okay, hey, how am I doing?
Yeah.
And really making sure you're on top of it.
And I think too with this is that what is difficult for me to realize now is that I am one of the fortunate ones that was able to afford counseling and afford
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
And it's just not accessible to many, many people. And making just the awareness and strategies more just out there and readily available for people to use if they can't go to counseling or therapy is a goal of mine as well. So
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Much needed. So
for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks, my lovely sister.
Yes, thank you, lovely sister.
Thanks for coming on and talking about it. I know it's it's a lot to talk through, but it's important. So I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.